Hi, this is Wilna, and I'm so excited to bring you a little process video today. This is really not about the end product to me, it's all about the process, and I call these little pages exercises in creativity. So the first thing I did was just start with a little wash. Light wash is thin, watery layer of color brushed across the page to create atmosphere rather than detail. And it's not meant to define shapes or objects, it's just meant to set the emotional tone and to start off with a non-white paper, because there's nothing that intimidates you more than white paper. And then I added a piece of an old book with Mod Podge, and now I'm just playing with strips and creating a roadmap on this page. Actually, what I'm doing, just making marks, not really being very emotionally attached to what I'm doing, but it sort of like dictates where the page will end up. And of course, a little texture with light molding paste that I'm squeezing or brushing with broad strokes through a stencil. And I make these stencils myself with my Silhouette Cameo, which I've been using for the last 10-12 years. Still so in love with my Silhouette Cameo, and I use these stencils over and over and over again. And what I love about the ability to make them myself is that I can really capture anything that I want, very personal meaning, song lyrics, whatever, poems. The same goes for the illustrations that you see here, the birds, the flower, the flourishes. I make them myself, and it's just part of my creative process. It's sort of like other people knit when they watch TV shows. I draw and I paint things, and then I make them into digital products, so mostly for myself. So this page actually is shaping up to be like a little garden, and what happens above the ground and what happens below the ground. And the pencil I use there is a Stabilo Aquarelle in black, and I love this pencil. I have multiple of them. I sharpen them with a edge cutter, and they are wonderful to draw and paint with. Like you can see there, when you add water to them, they flow. So if you look at the page right now, it looks fairly, busy. And I always like to add a little bit of calmness to it. And that's what I'm doing now with acrylic paint. And I just going to paint back some of the areas. And that is why I say that I don't get attached to anything on the page, because whatever you start with in the beginning will probably not be there at the end. And sometimes I like to paint while using my heat gun, because it dries the paint quicker and it gives you a little bit of texture. I love to use spray paints and again stencils that I've made myself. And in this one I would spray with one color, and then without moving the stencil I would use a lighter color. And that's why you see those blended leaves that looks like they're blended with light green and dark green. And then I'm just adding a little bit of gloss white in spray paint here, and again, it's just to calm things up a little. And then I wanted to add almost like a sunrise horizon. So I'm just spraying with a little bit of lime green. And in the video, it shows up a little bit more neon, but it's not. And then I'm just painting in again with I want to create this under the ground idea of the plants having roots, and it's just telling a little story. So, and I'm using again the pencil and then using water and a fine point brush to make it flow. And then again with the pencil, just drawing in a little bit of detail. And I call these doodling. It's really my favorite part of any type of work that I do, is when I can get to the point where I add in the details. So the one reason why I call these little exercises in creativity, the whole purpose of it is not to get attached, because when you get to this point, you're so afraid that you're going to do something and mess it up. But my whole plan is to see how far I can push it and maybe not mess it up, or even if I mess it up, can I bring it back? So one of the most satisfying parts of creating any art journal page for me lately has been just to remove the tape. And I use this purple tape. It's a Scotch tape for delicate surfaces, because I find that if I use normal painted tape, it takes off some of the paper, and I don't like that. And I kind of love the edges and how clean it is. When I remove the tape, I would put it back. There you go, because now I'm going to do something a little bit daring, relatively, I just wanted to create a little bit of a darker space at the top. So I used the Prussian blue ink, acrylic ink, Liquitex acrylic ink, and now I'm just going to dab it a tiny bit with a baby wipe just to take off a little bit of the paint, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush and just paint it. So this is my little dare that I did for this little page, and I kind of love how it looked in the video at this point. I did push it back a little bit later on, and I kind of wish I didn't, but again, it's an exercise in creativity. Like, if you don't take risks on these little pages, that you can make the same page 10 times and do something different on each of them until you get to a point where you feel like you've got it. I recently got myself some acrylic paint markers, and I'm just going to play with it on this page a little bit. I kind of love it, even though it feels like the colors, or maybe it's just this particular set, is a little bit too metallic for me. But I still love how I can use them on mixed media, and they perform really well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail on the bottom part with these markers, and I'm using 2 different colors. And then again with my little sharpened aquarelle pencil, I'm just going to add some markings here as well. Thing that I do often lately, I would just draw with my pencil and then wet the brush with a little water, and then you can just paint, and those drops is so light, they're so transparent, but when they dry, they just add so much dimension to a page. It really makes it interesting, and I kind of love it. Just gonna add some more details with a little sponge and acrylic paint in deep purple here. And just a note that sometimes I think it's lost in a video like this. I really let my layers dry completely before I do another layer. And I think that is why I sometimes love to work on 2 or 3 pages at the same time, because then I can keep working and the layers can dry on the other page. So here is my final page. It's dry, and I just love. You can see I pushed back at the top. I added a little bit more white, but you can see the details. It really looks like there's layer upon layer upon layer, and I love this look so much. And again, the page in itself is maybe not the prettiest one I've ever made, but I wanted to post this video because for me it's all about the process, and in the end, you know, I can use different illustrations or stencils on this page, but this idea of layering media upon media upon media is such a fun and interesting way to pursue and to keep things interesting. So thank you so much for joining me in this little video. I would appreciate your comments and just if you have questions, you can ask me, and I hope to do more of these. Bye.